Hey guys, this is Grim Perspectives, I'm Grim. In this series of videos, we are trying to create a Diablo pen paper campaign, a pen paper campaign set in the universe of the Diablo franchise. And to do that, the last video, we were talking about the concepts and themes that made the Diablo franchise, especially the earlier parts, such a great and dense experience for players. And today, in the second video, we will talk about the meat and bones of our system, the rules, because you can't play a pen and paper campaign without some rule set. So, to do that, we will take a look at the Savage Worlds rules. Savage Worlds is a pen and paper rule system that isn't tied to a specific genre. And by that I mean that you can use it to play everything from Stone Age tribes to medieval fantasy to World War II soldiers to sci-fi and space opera stuff. It's really that generic. But in contrast to things like the Fate system, for example, it's much more combat focused, and that makes it well suited to a Diablo pen paper campaign. So, where do we start? The thing is, in tutorials concerning pen paper rule system, you often see people start with character generation, and we're not gonna do that. Because to generate a character, you need to know what you can play and how the mechanics work. If you don't know those things, what the fuck are you doing creating character? You should have a look at those things first. So, instead, we're starting with a pre-generated character, and we're gonna put him through his paces. And by that I mean, we're gonna take a look at the game mechanics. So, in this video, we're gonna talk about the combat rules of Savage Worlds, because guess what? It's a Diablo pen and paper campaign. There's gonna be combat, right? Yeah, there is. And which pre-generated character are we gonna use? Well, let me introduce you to the heavyweight melee champion of the Diablo franchise. Meet the Barbarian. So, let's take a look at the Barbarian. From when he first entered the games in the Hellfire expansion of Diablo 1, he was the melee combat monster. He traded in the little magical abilities the warrior still had for more melee combat prowess. And this guy really could rip shit up. And let's have a look at him. We see here the Barbarian with a short description and a really bad image, but well, what are you gonna do? Below that we have his attributes, and what's that? Well, if you look there, he's got a D10 for strength. What's a D10, you might ask? Well, in Savage Worlds, all the attributes and skills are written down in dice sizes. So, you have a 10-sided dice for strength. And if you're gonna roll strength, you roll a 10-sided die. Quite simple, right? Okay, Sam, what do we have there? We've got a die 10 for strength, we've got a die 6 for agility, a die 8 for vitality, a die 4 for smarts, and a die 6 for spirits. The attributes are pretty self-explanatory. If you look at them, you're pretty much used to such a setup from other pen paper games. And then we have his skills. We've got a die 10 in fighting, a die 6 in throwing, intimidation, and climbing, and a die 4 in swimming, note, survival, and tracking. All those skills do something, and, well, yeah, read them. It's pretty much that simple. For the combat uses, we're gonna visit them further on. Then, up again, right to the attributes, we've got some other attributes like toughness, parry, pace, charisma, and his wounds. We're gonna look at those when they come up in the combat. Okay, so our barbarian hero is traveling, and when walking through a wood and coming across a clearing, he notices something, or does he? Well, let's have a look. Skill rolls. You roll your skill against a target number, which is usually 4. There are exceptions, we'll come to those later. So, we roll our notice, and we roll the 2. Well, that's not that good. That's not a 4. What are we to do? Well, we're not any farmer. We are the Barbarian. We are a player character, and as such, we are a wild card. What is a wild card? Well, Savage Worlds knows 2 categories of PCs and NPCs, and those are wildcards and extras. Wildcards have a wild die, we'll come to this in a bit, and they have wounds, they don't die instantly. Extras do not. So, a wild die, I've highlighted it here down below, it means when you roll skills or attributes, you roll an additional 6-sided die, in addition to your skill die, and you choose the higher number. So let's do that. Reroll a 6-sided die, and we get a 5. Well, at last, it's more than a 4, so we noticed something. What did we notice? There are 2 fallen. You know, those little buggers from Diablo 2 on the clearing. And our Barbarian has surprised them. We'll skip initiative, we'll deal with that in a future video, maybe. Well, just assume that we've surprised them and we get to act first. So what do we do when we see fallen? We hit them. We are the Barbarian, so we're gonna hit them with an axe. I've highlighted the combat option pre-picked for you, and it reads, you roll fighting, a die 10, like in your skill set, plus your wild die against the opponent's parry. I highlighted the parry of the fallen for you. If you succeed, you deal 2 dice 10 damage. If you get a raise on the attack roll, 4 points higher than the opponent's parry, you deal an additional dice 6 damage. So, re-roll our fighting die. It's a die 10, it rolls a 6, and our wild die, it rolls a 3. We choose the higher one, which is a 6. Our fallen has a parry of 5 normally, but since he's carrying a small shield, he's got a parry of 6. So, we rolled a 6, he has a parry of 6, we succeeded, but barely. If you hit the target number, you succeed. So, well, any lower and we wouldn't have hit him. So what's next? We gonna do some damage. We roll 2 die 10, and with the Barbarian is 2 die 10 because his strength is a die 10, and his weapon says roll an additional die 10. So we roll a 6, and we roll a 5 for 11 points of damage. What does that mean? We compare it to the opponent's toughness. If your damage is greater than the opponent's toughness, you make him shaken. Shaken essentially means he's rattled, he's fallen over, he's really scared of you. Something like that. He will most likely not act again. He's stunned, you might say. He's not out of the fight, but he's stunned for the moment. For every 4 points of damage that is higher than the opponent's toughness, you deal 1 wound. We've rolled 11 damage against the opponent's toughness of 5, since he's wearing a bit of leather armor. 5, 11 against 5, it's more than 4 higher than his. He's taken a wound, and since he's an extra and can take no wounds, he's down. So, 1 down, 1 more to go, but now it's his turn. He's trying to hit us. He rolls his fighting die. He's a brave little bugger. Even though he's alone against the Barbarian, he's gonna try his best. He rolls his fighting die. He rolls a 6. Wait, just a 6? Yeah, he doesn't get a wild die. But he rolled a 6 on a 6-sided die. That's the maximum number that can be rolled on that die. And in Savage Worlds, that means that this die is gonna explode. What does that mean? Well, you roll it again, and you add the 2 numbers together. So we rolled a 6 and a 2. He rolled an 8. Little bugger. He rolled an 8. We have only got a parry of 6. He hit us. Let's see if he can damage the Barbarian. He rolls damage. He rolls 2 die 4 for damage. He rolls a 2 and he rolls a 3 for a total of 5. We've got a toughness of 7 because we're also wearing a bit of armor. So his damage is lower than our toughness. He doesn't damage us. Cool. That means his turn is over. Our turn. We're gonna do something nice. We're trying to intimidate him. The Berserker, hit by the puny attacks of the Fallen, arches his back, lifts his face to the moon, and howls. So we're gonna roll Intimidate against his spirit. That's a contested roll. We're no longer trying to hit the 4. We want to roll higher than he did on his attribute roll. Reroll our skill die, die 6, and our wild die. We've got a 3 and a 5, which means we take the 5. He rolled a 1. Yeah. Okay, he rolled a 1. So, what does Intimidate say? On a success, if we roll higher than his roll, we get a +2 bonus on our next action against him. On a race, which if we roll more than 4 above his roll, he is shaken as well. We rolled more than 4 points higher than him. He is shaken, and we get +2 on our next action against him. So, now, here we got a quick side note. If you beat the target number, it's called a success. If you beat the target number by 4 or more, it's called a race. So what we just did here is we rolled a race against him. Cool. So +2 again on our next action against him, and he's shaken. Okay. So now it's his turn. He has to recover from being shaken. So, what is he to do? He rolls Spirit. And if he's successful, if he rolls a success, he removes the Shaken token, but can't act this round. If he rolls a race, he removes the Shaken token and acts. So, he rolls a 3. That's less than a success. Okay, failure. So, he is still shaken and he's not gonna act that round. That's great for us. The Barbarian decides to end this. He is going for the kill. He's doing a wild attack, which is a normal melee attack roll like we did last time, but this time we are really leaning into it. We might open ourselves up a bit, but this Fallen needs to die right now. We get +2 to fighting and we get +2 to damage, but our parry is lowered by 2 until the next turn. That's not that bad because we're pretty sure he ain't gonna act again. He's shaken. We have a really good chance to kill him. So, reroll a 2 and a 7. And we get +2 from the wild attack, and we get +2 from Intimidate. Yeah, that's cool. +4. So we roll an 11 against his parry of 6. Ooh, that's cool. That is a race. So, what does a race do? Well, we look it up under melee attack. If you get a race on the attack roll, we deal damage, and we deal an additional die 6 of damage. So we roll damage, 1 die 10 for our strength, 1 die 10 for our weapon, die 6 because we rolled that good. And we roll a 7, a 4, and a 5 for a total of 16. 16, that's greater than his toughness of 5. It's greater than... yeah, about that. It's greater than his toughness of 5. He would be shaken, but since he's already shaken, second shaken results means that he takes a wound. So, it's also bigger than 4 over his toughness, which means it's another wound. And, well, it's also bigger than 8 over his toughness, it's 3 wounds. It's an extra. He can't take wounds. He's down anyway. But that was a really hard blow. He's pretty much splattered all over the clearing. So let's try to sum up what we learned so far. If you roll a dice, you usually roll your skill die against either a 4, the number 4, or against an opponent's score, like we did when we were attacking him, we tried to beat his parry, or against an opponent's roll, like we did when we used Intimidate on him and we were trying to roll higher than his spirit roll. Wildcards, which are player characters and named NPCs, bosses, stuff like that, roll an additional wild die, a 6-sided die, in addition to their attribute or skill die, and pick the higher result. In addition, when a wild card gets wounded, they get penalties for those wounds. Extras just die, tough luck. They're just out of the game when they take wounds. If a die shows the highest number it can possibly roll, like a 6 on a 6-sided die or a 10 on a 10-sided die, you roll it again and add the 2 results together. And if the second roll shows the highest number it can roll again, you roll it another time and add all 3 results together, and so on. Those rolls can get pretty high. When you beat the target number you were trying to hit with the roll, it's called a success. If you beat it by 4, it's called a raise. And for every 4 points you go above that, it's called an additional raise. So if you're trying to hit a 4 is a success, an 8 is a raise, a 12 is 2 raises, and so on. 16, 3 raises, and so on. Melee combat is you roll a fighting roll against an opponent's parry. If you succeed, you roll damage, which is compared to the opponent's toughness. If you roll higher than his toughness, you shake him. If you roll 4 higher than his toughness, you give him a wound. Every 4 points above that is an additional wound. You can choose to do a wild attack, which means you get +2 on the fighting roll and +2 to damage, but it reduces your parry by 2. And range combat, which we didn't cover in depth here, is pretty much very like melee combat. You just don't roll against the opponent's parry. You roll with your shooting or throwing skill against the target number 4. And you might get penalties for range and circumstances and cover and stuff, but, well, it's pretty much a lot like melee combat. We covered tricks. Intimidate is a trick, and there are other tricks as well, like the taunt skill or attributes you can use in a similar way. And what they do is you roll your skill die against an opponent's roll. Intimidate in this case is opposed by the opponent's spirit, and if you roll higher than him, you get a +2 bonus to your next roll. If you score raise, then you actually have shaken him. Oh, what I left out so far. Shaken. If you are shaken, or if an opponent is shaken, and it's their turn, they roll spirit. If they achieve a success, that's good, because then the shaken is gone, but he can't act in this round. If he scores a raise, that's even better, because then he removes the shaken, and he can still act. So, what we left out so far is initiative. We're gonna do it some other time, perhaps, but it's usually everyone sits around the table, and you deal cards from poker playing deck to everyone, and we go from highest card to lowest card. That's pretty non-standard for a pen and paper game, but it's fun, and I kept it for nearly all of my games. So yeah. We didn't cover the other tricks. There are tricks like taunt, like agility, like smarts, that you can do which work very similarly to Intimidate, but we didn't cover them in depth here. And we left out most of the modifiers, both in combat and out of combat. Like if it's really dark, you might get a penalty to your notice rolls. If you are hitting someone with your great axe and he's got a bow, so he can't parry you, he has no shield, no bow, no sword, no nothing, then you will get a bonus to hit him. All those modifiers we left out so far because, well, this is just a quick introduction. So, what are we gonna... What I put down in the description for you is I've put down the quick drive rules for Savage Worlds, which is a brief overview of the rules, which are free for everyone and sponsored more or less by the publisher to make it easy for people to start playing the game. And I linked those down in the description, and you can have a look at them, and they will tell you pretty much in more detail what we covered here. And what I also put down in the description is a link to the Barbarian's character sheet. It has a few additional things on it that you didn't see here, so take a look if you liked it, and, well, see if he matches up to your expectations of the Barbarian. What are we gonna do next? We are gonna build us an additional character, our own character. So we're gonna build the rogue. We'll do character generation. Maybe we'll do a bit of more range combat because we didn't do that now. And we're gonna go in depth on two linked mechanics in Savage Worlds that are pretty substantial for role-playing in the system. And those are bennies. Bennies are tokens you get for good role-playing, and you can use them to re-roll rolls and ignore wounds and all kind of useful stuff, and you get them for good role-playing. And there are guidelines for role-playing as part of your character generation that you lay down in character generation for Savage Worlds. So we're going to talk about all that in the next video, and I'm looking forward to see you there. So if you liked it, this channel is like brand new. That's the second video I did. If you liked it, show it. Leave a like down below, and if you want to see more content, subscribe. If you know someone who might be interested in that stuff, we are doing the Diablo campaign at the moment. We are going to do a lot of more pen and paper stuff in the future. And from there, we're going to branch off and we're going to do live action role-playing stuff, HEMA stuff. We're going to branch off into pop culture and see how that influences pen paper gaming, role-playing in general. And whatever strikes your fancy, really. If you got something you like to see on this channel, tell me. So, if you know someone who might be interested in that stuff, tell him. Give him a link to my videos. I would very much appreciate everyone who gets a look at those videos. Okay, so I'm really looking forward to doing the next few videos with you, because we're going to go more in-depth into character generation. And then, after we cover the rules, character generation and that stuff, we're gonna look at how we need to adapt the rules, and how we are gonna lay the groundwork for our campaign. And I'm really looking forward to that. If you liked it so far, please stick around. There's good stuff coming up. Until then, let us create something wonderful, right? See you around.